everyone. The microphones are down there, so rather than crouching down, I think I'll just use my pointy voice. Everybody can hear me in the back, I assume. My name is Margaret Longbrick. I am an editor at the Historic New Orleans Collection. The collection, for those of you who don't know, is a museum and research center and publisher in the French Quarter. Museum is free museum for anybody who might be in town visiting. And we are so excited to be here and partnering once again with One Book, One New Orleans and Words and Music, who has been such a great supporter of our book publications for years. This panel is actually proof that what we're doing, what we hope is working. I'm going to be very earnest up here for a moment. When I first moved to New Orleans, I went to a conference and I heard Clint Bruce, who is a professor, give a presentation on black newspapers run by black people here in New Orleans during the Civil War, before and during the Civil War. And it was the first that I knew that black newspapers had existed here in this state, in this city during the Civil War. It kind of blew my mind. He was a translator of, these were French language newspapers that he was discussing, and he had translated the poetry that those newspapers were publishing. They published political poetry, they published love poetry, and what we learned, the first thing I thought was this has to be a book. We've got to bring this together. More people have to know about this. And what we learned when we pulled this book together was that not only were the poets writing about philosophy, writing about the French Romantics, they were also writing back and forth to each other. Someone would write a poem called He Is, as in God Is, and another poet would write a response called He Is Not. And as we didn't realize until we collected the poems and put them together, these sort of invisible conversations in poetry emerged as we put the book together. And it was just such a labor of love. For 10 years, the translator worked on this. So we published it, we're very excited about it, and one of the best things that happened was, I'll kind of make the story short because the two of them know more about it than I do, but the translator called me up and said, "You won't believe who I just heard from." Father Amde Hamilton from the Lost Prophets in California, who is himself has a heritage, a Creole heritage in California, has found this book. And he is very excited about the California Creole and Louisiana Afro-Creole connection. And we wanted to, that's the first I knew that existed too. So the fact that this new connection exists, the fact that we can bring this book and that Words of Music is giving us a place for Tiffany Guillory Thomas and Father Hamilton to have this discussion is just, it shows us that everything you've been trying to do is actually working. So I'm going to let Megan introduce our panelists, and just thanks to everyone so much for being here. If you are interested in the book, this copy will be available over there to look through, and the bookseller can order you a copy for anyone who would like to actually take it.
For how much?
$40.
Thank you, Margaret Longbrick from the Historic New Orleans Collection, who, as she said, they've been an amazing partner of One Book, One New Orleans, and have really helped get books into the hands of community members throughout the city, especially with their comic Monumental, which is a graphic novel telling the life of the first ever Black Lieutenant Governor of Louisiana, Oscar Dunn. That's an incredible book too. I've got to plug it because you know I love it. Y'all, my kid read it when he was 8 and didn't know he was reading history. And then I told him everything in the comic happened, and his little mind was blown. As was my mind when I first heard of Father Amde Hamilton. So I'm going to read bios real quick, but before I do, as you all know, if you are supporting Words and Music through getting tickets, you are automatically entered to win a $25 gift card to Community Book Center, as we're supporting not one but 2 local independent booksellers this festival. We've got Tubby and Coos outside at the festival, and then we've got Community Bookseller Center next door. So our winner this session is Susan Kagan. Susan, are you here? There's Susan. Come get your gift card, darling, or I can bring it to you. Susan has shown up for us year after year after year in so many ways. Thank you, Susan. And Tiffany, I'm going to apologize in advance because when I read your bio, I might butcher the French a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
So I'm just going to go ahead and apologize for that. Father Amde Hamilton is the founding member of the Watts Prophets, and his two colleagues released the world's first rap album in 1969. This has sparked the immense culture we know now as rap and hip hop. Welcome, Father Amde. And Tiffany Guillory Thomas is an activist with a passion for researching and sharing the histories of the African diaspora in Louisiana, and has worked as a research assistant on several Louisiana history projects. She's recently studied French at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, and is also a learner and advocate for the endangered Louisiana Creole language. Tiffany has worked with numerous cultural organizations, including Louisiana CREOLE Inc., New Foundation, and Tele Louisiane, and continues to nurture connections throughout the Francophone and Creolephone world. She works in institutional advancement at Xavier University of Louisiana. Welcome, Tiffany. I'll let y'all take it.
Hi, everyone. Are we going to show the film first?
Yeah.
Okay. I think you did a great job.
My grandfather is a prophet, a leader, and a man who exhibits extreme love despite the world's harsh realities. His mission has inspired many, including myself and my generation. He's a testament for a lot of young people to follow within their truth. The things he's done within his life has been completely monumental, and I don't think there's anybody better to explain it than himself, Father Amde Hamilton from the Watts Prophets. The clips featured is from his unreleased documentary, produced by yours truly. Hope you enjoy. Music is the way of life.
This is DJ Quick, and in case y'all don't know it, I've been down with the Watts Prophets since I was like 5, 6 years old, man.
Now, you got the Watts Prophets album? It symbolized what we were going through in America as African Americans at the time. This was a very, very strong record.
Spiritual strong, allowing opportunities for great
what are you gonna do about it? So I said, what am I gonna do about it? She said, yeah, somebody gotta go speak for her. So I go down there to the hospital, and I asked to see Nina Simone. I find out where she's at, and I go up to her ward. And I'm told about the police. I'm dressed in my police garb and everything. So they tell me, you know, that I can't go in. So I go to the telephone, and I call one of the city councilmen named Bob Fair. And I tell Bob, I said, man, I'm finna go to jail. And I want to see her and see if I can help her. He said, hold up. So anyway, they brought her in to me. I was probably so busy. And she came in. The first thing she said to me, I said, how are you, Mrs. Simone? She said, however I am, I don't see no goddamn person. And I looked up at her, and I said, first of all, Mrs. Simone, I'm not no goddamn preacher, I'm a priest. These white people was fixing to hang you. Sit down.
Lee Hamilton, one of the musical legends from the community, saying from the early days of rap outlaw's grew a demand for social justice and more.
Poets don't need army or a gun. They're the real army of one. Truth has trouble in the midst of lies. But remember, I know truth survives. Because something is valuable does not mean you value it. Man must value each other, then put value on the value.
Rap emanated from the spirit of, as I told you, my Creole heritage. They breeded us to be militant poets. All you have to do is read Louisiana Creole history, and you'll see that we had schools where we literally bred militant poets.
And then see, they write their own poetry. And then after they write it, they sit down and among themselves, they critique it with the guidance of the Watch Prophets. And then once they critique it, they start memorizing it. And then they start scripting their poetry up under the guidance of the Watch Prophets. Once they learn the scripting and then they memorize the poetry, then they start performing it. They start learning how to present it. And that's when you get the dynamics of it. Because we don't, the Watch Prophets don't show them how to present it. That's within them.
So many characteristics. I hear so many people say they're queens, but a queen has to have a certain elegance, a certain grace, a certain character, a certain dignity. And my wife had all of that, so she contributed to my health, she contributed to my wisdom, she contributed to everything that's me, because we did everything together. I wouldn't have the archives that I have now if it wasn't for her. She stood in the background and recorded every day for the past 60 years almost of my rap. We were one. There was no Sarah without me, there was no me without her. We were one.
Thank you, Taylor. Of course.
Thank you. What an honor to be here, to be sitting here with you, Father Amde. And of course, none of this would be possible without the work of the Music Festival, One Book New Orleans, Historic New Orleans Collection, and also thanks for being in this building, named after the heroic Captain Andre Caillou. And I'll use your words, Father Amde. He was an ebony Creole hero of the Battle of Fort Hudson, for whom the poem of July the 4th, 1863, translated into English, it describes, yes, there, amidst bombs and bullets spray, this hero of countenance black and proud, guided the way through the battle spray for his black brothers with iron courage endowed. Sounds a lot like you.
I would so.
And so there's the slide. I wanted to make sure to give a special recognition for this book, where the poem about Captain Caillou appears in this book by the Historic New Orleans Collection, written by Dr. Clint Bruce and published by the HNOC, and it's stirred your heart in some ways. Is that right? Can you tell us about your discovery of this book?
Well, I was searching our history, and I read up on that book. I was searching our history. We came out of North Africa. We were Jews, black Jews, and that's the Castile. We came here in 1803, and we came to California in the early 40s. We left from the book. We went by Lafayette, Road Ridge, Crowley, and New Orleans, etc. And we moved to California. And actually, what people don't understand about that generation of grandmothers is that they knew that they had been, many of them had been breathed into existence. And they never forgot that. At least my grandmother. And she taught me two things. Always speak up and put your foot down when you're being done wrong. That was two of the main things that my grandmother taught me. But let me do a little poetry so you can get an idea of how I think. I hear people say each and every day that the internet will set modern man free like a dolphin in the sea. Now that statement completely confused me. Since when, my friends, has a net set anything free? Now my simpleness I regret, but where is the freedom in a net? Fishermen make nets, spiders weave webs, both are trapped. The spider knows all in his web. He keeps it in sight day and night, wrapped real, real tight. A click and a bite. Is it online, in line? Download, unload. Where's the freedom in a net? Stealth traps in your laps, net zero, hero, sky, tail, intel, DSL, email, tell. Processing your personal soulful info. No telling where it go, only the net maker really know. Now, you used to be able to shred it, but now that's died. The hard drive is always alive. Wrapped real tight with a click and a bite, Spider-Man can pull you up tonight. Free man, free the end of the net, will one day experience regret. Because there's no freedom in the net. Fishermen control their nets. Spiders control their webs. Who, my friend, controls the World Wide Web? You. But Spider has you in its website. Wrapped real tight. Click. When the 90s came, I tried to change my negative social outlook. Just maybe this world really wasn't done by crooks. On close inspection, I saw that justice and morality was no longer a reality in most men's mentality. Racism was well. Malcolm had been reduced to a commercial X and the Panthers to a movie. When the 90s came, I saw black self-hate at a high, vicious rate. I dug panhandlers. I stumbled over homeless, soup kitchen abused youth with in vogue values. Suicidal, sexed out Nintendo kids doing violent dances, taking deadly chances. When the 90s came, I peeped the middle class becoming last fast. Network, corporate, multinational insanity has control of humanity. And the world sighted into an ethnic fight as the gun runners grow in economic might and the poor people struggle and fight and struggle and fight. When the 90s came, I saw the world's real mass murder sitting on the highest purchase from the government to the churches. Self-righteous high-tech killers robbing and raping minds at prime time. Mental scars, civil wars, people singing hate songs of death and tribal wars. As rape women weep and children die. Most time for a great big law and order lie. When the 90s came, I saw disease and pollution with no solution. As psyched out, robot-involved mind people follow like sheep and weep. Because a prime time, billboard, computerized, multimedia mentality has become their reality. When the 90s came, I learned to have hope. Sometimes in the face of no hope, but I still have hope when the 90s came. This poem here is one of those poems that do its own thing. I wrote this poem when I was first invited to a major university. It was UCLA. My poetry wasn't addressed to white people. It was addressed to black people. So when I got invited to UCLA, I knew I would have a white audience. But I thought I had no poetry. So I sat down and wrote this poem. This poem caused, when I finished the poem, it was the International Student Center. And it was about 100 people there. And when I finished the poem was named, when I finished it, one of the professors from UCLA said, the nerve of you to come here at UCLA and do this type of poem, wisdom and knowledge left college. So Indian professor stood up and says he has a right to say what he wants to say. To make a long story short, when I left, the whole room was fighting. They were all arguing. So that was that kind of poem. When Bob Marley first heard it, he came and asked me who was I. And I ended up doing it at his funeral. But the poem says, wisdom and knowledge left college. Wisdom went east, somewhere to the feast. Knowledge went north, south, east, and west in conquest. Technology became life's test. Wisdom hid, because of what knowledge did. Hid away till judgment day. Knowledge moved on as far as the moon. Cracked the earth and took its will. Stole man from life, messed up air, poison everywhere. Creative knowledge without wisdom flourished, and bigger bombs were made, and drops on have-nots. Birth control became a goal. Knowledgeable monsters gained control. Souls were stole for mere gold. Technique was in the minds of mankind, floating in wine, sailing through life in a therapeutic way, learning new technical tricks. Life slowly slide away. Books, not feeling was man's thing. Man checked a book on how to cook, took his life to a psych, into a book he would look, to label your brain schizoid, paranoid, or some other technical jive, and make you look at you and not hear. Remember, my brothers and sisters, what I say to you, for life has showed me all this pain, laid in an evil thing. But raise your heads high, because knowledge without wisdom will die. Wisdom hid, because of what knowledge did. Hid away till judgment day. Judgment day. Judgment day. Judgment day. You can't do a poem like that solution. I hate poets who write poems with no solution. You just vomit on me and say, leave me no way out. This poem, I believe a poem must live in the library of people's mind. And that's what I try to do. If it's nothing but a line, I hope it lives in the library of someone's mind. An elder man told me, children today are raised like chickens, thrown into this world to grow, not knowing what they need to know or which way to go. Son, he said, lend me your ear, and I will make it clear. Planting seeds in the garden of young brains is a deep, deep thing. You've got to breathe what you need, or evil will plant the seed. You see, man is fertile like earth. What seeds are planted determine his worth. The cultivation of your child's mind must be done on your time. A chicken don't let a duck raise his chicks, making chickens act like ducks. Man must protect and educate the fruit of his own vine, or leave a generation blind. Fish run in fish schools and learn fish rules. Ducks quack and roosters crow. Is a fact we all must know. Copycat is a fact, na-na-na-na-na-na, when it comes to things like that. When a man sows his seed, he can be sure he's not getting weeds. Plant God first, deep into the soul of the new birth. Throw righteous seeds where you see a need. Plant respect and that expect. Sprinkle the seeds of faith, love, 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 and work early in the garden of a young child's mind, and divineness shall occupy its time. You've got to breathe what you need. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing those words of wisdom. It reminds me of when we had the chance to meet.
Yes, at Starbucks, huh?
Yeah, yes it was. Yes it was. And so to continue the story, it was Dr. Bruce that made that connection between us. My family was going to Los Angeles for a short vacation, and my family rides motorcycles, and so I knew that you were in Los Angeles, and that Dr. Bruce had a connection with you, and so I was able to get in contact with you, and we were able to meet. So while we were on vacation, I left my family behind, and I went to South Central, to the Starbucks. I'm not sure what corner that was, maybe Crenshaw?
It's at Crenshaw, Lamert Park District. If you ever come to LA, that's the popular little black spot we got now.
And we met, and we had a wonderful conversation. It was a sunny day, but it was made even more glorious by the wisdom that you shared with me. And so, I actually had a slide photo. There it is, right there. So, you can see I took a picture of Father Amde. If you look up there, you can kind of see me sitting down. I'm actually taking the photo. And then what this photo is, after we met and we talked, and I got this, and I have this book here. This is the book, Me Today, You Tomorrow, Journey of a Street Poet. I let him know that I wanted to go to see the water. I wanted to see the California beach for the first time in my life. And he wanted to make sure that he knew that I made it. And so I took a picture when I was there. That's the picture that I sent to him. So that's me in Santa Monica. I made it all the way to the coast. And so, yeah, it was a wonderful day. So let's talk a little bit about the history of the Watts Prophets. Like, where and how did you guys come together? How did the group begin?
Well, me and another Creole by the name of Richard Dito got together. We were in Watts right after the Watts riots. And Bud Schulberg, the guy who made the film On the Waterfront, had come to Watts shortly after the riots. And he opened a workshop. He didn't know what to do, but he opened it. He just kept coming every week for about 2 months. No one ever came. Finally, Jimmy Sherman, a guy, stopped, and from that, the workshop began to grow. Because one of our major problems after the riot is we had no area of expression. And Bud brought us that area of expression. He brought Hollywood with him. And he realized that rap was an art form like jazz, no different. It evolved exactly similar to the way jazz evolved. It started early when we first came here as slaves. And we might be on a plantation here in Louisiana, where they were speaking 5 different intact languages. But all of them mostly had Bantu base because they were from West Africa. And Bantu has over 400 different languages. So anyway, we came and we couldn't talk to each other. So what we began to do is we began to take common denominator words that were in all of these languages, that went to Bantu languages that went straight across Africa. And we began to formulate a new language with these words that we understood straight across Africa. And it had deceit in it also. It had to have deceit. That's why when you really know what rap music is, or rap, you will see that we knew we had to, like when we say that's sick, and we mean that's good. Okay, that everybody else might think we meant sick, but we know what we meant by inflection. And so this new language began to form, automatically, ever evolving. It's still evolving today. It didn't show its head until a man by the name of Paul Laurence Dunbar came about, who was married to a Creole woman from New Orleans, who had a lot of influence on his writing. And the linguists knew this was a new, ever-evolving language, but they called it dialect. They didn't want to give it the language thing. That didn't come until 1970 when it was declared language. But it continued to evolve. Wherever you found jazz, you found that hip talk. Like Louis Armstrong was having all that kind of talk, or talking and singing and playing. So it began to evolve in different ways, because if you know the definition of rap, it means to say it, chant it, hum it, scat it, whistle it, however you can communicate with the voice. That's what rap means. So it continued to evolve wherever jazz was played. J. Edgar Hoover even had the FBI come and investigate jazz musicians because he thought they were speaking another language that they didn't understand. And they were. It was ever evolving. And it didn't show itself, well, Oscar Brown Jr., if you know who he is, he was one who kept carried on. Baraka, Leroy Jones, he helped carry it on. If you see him doing his poetry, rhythmically articulated poetry, that's what rap means to me, rhythmically articulated poetry. And so it came on down to 2 groups that brought it out to the world. The Last Poets and the Watts Prophets. The Last Poets on the East Coast, the Watts Prophets on the West Coast. East Coast evolved a thing called hip-hop. Hip-hop is pop art. Rap is an art form like jazz, a fine art form where whoever accepts it, we know what it is. And it continued to evolve, and it was finally taken out of our hands. They couldn't let us keep talking like this, like we were talking. You heard the FBI came and burned our workshop to the ground. you saw it there. I was assistant director. I think you were there, Keith. Yeah, you were there. I hired him. He came to our workshop one night pleading hunger and homelessness. At that time, the Watts writers worked in Watts, or all across America, there were very few homeless black people. We didn't have that at that time. We'd put them in the garage, in the back room, somewhere where they could eat and have a place to lay down. But that's changed now. We are the biggest population home probably is. But they came along and I was taken to one of those meetings. I walked out because I didn't like what was being said. And the meeting was about the development of the prison industrial complex and how rap was going to play a part in it. And a famous rapper took me to that meeting. And they introduced me. I guess they thought I wanted to play along with their game. They introduced me, and then they started talking because what shocked me was a room full of white people. Wasn't no two black people there. We were hip hop coming from that thing. And I kept wondering, who are all these people? As I sit in the middle of the room, and I started listening to them. And they were the music industry, accountants, publicists, managers, record producers, etc. And they were talking about how hip-hop was going to be used to help build a new prison industrial complex that you see here in America, private prisons. I got pissed up and walked out and didn't hear the whole story because I couldn't take it. And I left and I watched it come about. And I watched our history wiped out. The Watts Prophets and the Last Poet, you hear very little about us. And you must remember, rap had a baby called hip-hop, not hip-hop had a baby called rap. Hip-hop is a pop art form, if you know what pop art is. Rap is a fine art, running right alongside jazz. Because wherever jazz was, and if you listen to our music, people say, oh, I heard the Jubilee singers, they was already, they sure were. We use song, rap, if you watch Louis Armstrong, you stop and talk. Watch all of our music, you'll see it all along, all the way. You'll see the development of this language. And today I can't even understand it. Because the youngsters, it's ever evolving. Like my generation called it a pad. Keith's generation called it a crib. My grandson's generation calls it a spot. It's constantly evolving. And it wasn't recognized as a language until around 1970. I think Dr. Williams was the one. But they took it over. The record industry and whoever else is running things took it over. And that's when you started hearing motherfucker, bitch, all that. They brought all that in. I've seen them say, you haven't said motherfucker enough on there when they're recording. Add a few more. They know exactly what they were doing. So it helped fuel the prison industrial complex. And it evolved into what you hear today. But the wonderful thing about it is what you hear in America as rap and hip-hop is not what you hear in other places around the world. You see young people that would never have a voice, or many people in this world who would never have a voice if it wasn't for rap music. Nobody gonna listen to a 15-year-old, a 10-year-old, etc. But rap music opened that up. And as I say, they didn't want it from the very beginning. They burned it to the ground. Our workshop, but we survived. I'm sitting here with y'all today. And I'm still telling the same story. Rapping is a wonderful art form. It's rhythmically articulated poetry. That's my definition of it. Rhythmically articulated poetry. That's what rap is. And let me shut up and let y'all ask some questions.
Those are actually answers for like 1, 2, 3 questions, the next 3 questions that I had, which you answered. I think I'm gonna go into, let me look at this poem. I'm gonna go to page 59, and I have the Ebony Creole Whispers book. And I have a slide of that as well. But on page 59 of that book, in the poem In and Out Memories, it's just a wonderful part of all of this history that you were talking about in family. And it goes frozen memories, New Orleans, Texas, LA, Mama, Papa, Grandma, Uncle Baba, Aunt Nanny, Fast Black, Okie Dokie, 3 popes, strolled Egypt's desert on this less traveled road of warm, cold, vivid memories. And
Pope
so,
Shenouda, Pope Shenouda, the poet, he was a poet, he's dead now, but he was over the World Orthodox, Egyptian Orthodox Church, and he heard of my work in Los Angeles. I founded the first Ethiopian Orthodox Church in the Western Hemisphere of the United States, in Los Angeles in the late 60s. And Pope Shenouda heard about me and my work in the community, and they wanted me to come over from the Ethiopian church to the Egyptian church, which were both Orthodox churches. But Pope Shenouda sent for me and brought me to Egypt and tried to get me to become a part of their congregation. But I came back, but I've met 3 popes. The Armenian Pope, the Egyptian Pope, and the Ethiopian Pope. And I founded several churches in the United States, in the Caribbean. I worked with Abula Yitzhak, the priest who was sent by Haile Selassie to establish churches in the West. The Rastafarians call him God. That's what they mean when they say Rasta. They're talking about Haile Selassie. But I worked directly for him when he sent word that he had started 2 things, the Ethiopian World Federation and the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. He sent west to the blacks. But it got kind of corrupt, and he wanted the federations closed down. The Ethiopian priests were very, very humble, and I'm very humble too, but I can be very demanding all at the same time. So they were afraid to go amongst the Rastas. And I told them I would do it. And I went to one of the most violent neighborhoods, Waterhouse it was called. And I changed the Ethiopian World Federation to the church. But that's just a little about my church history. No questions?
yes, absolutely. So I was reading about your family as well, and we talked about in LA about your Louisiana connection. And so you explained like where your family was from, but then once you made it to California, like what was that like in California? You had mentioned there being this Louisiana heritage. It felt like Louisiana and many people from Louisiana being there in your neighborhood.
Well, they was rolling in at that time. By the way, the guy who owned the radio station here, Danny Bakewell, any of y'all know that family, the Bakewells? Right, what station was it that they owned?
WBOK.
Yeah, well, and you was talking about us in the newspapers and us doing the newspapers and many years ago. Danny Bakewell owns the biggest newspaper in California. And he come right from New Orleans and did that. So we're still doing it. But what happened to our Creole community in Los Angeles, which was very vibrant and growing and very political, is they were putting a new freeway in Los Angeles. It was supposed to go down a street called Olympic, right side of Olympic. But suddenly, it was transferred right through the Creole community. The Creole community was working together like they always did here. You know, they get together and drink and cook, and they plaster and paint and do whatever they gotta do on Saturdays. We were doing stuff like that on the weekends. They ran a freeway straight through our community. 2 black communities, one in Santa Monica. So we didn't, you know, we still had problems where we was, but one thing about Creoles is we chose excellence, most of us. And that's kind of what we stuck with, is excellence. And we survived. Like I say, they were the political giants in Los Angeles, and probably still are quietly. They work together a lot. So, but that's how we got to Los Angeles, and that's how that community my grandmother was a big wheel in the Knights of Peter Claver and Ladies of Auxiliary. My grandfather was buried with the swords and the helmet and all that stuff. And my grandmother is very well documented in the Catholic Church. But before that, we were Sephardic Jews. That's where my family is. We came out of North Africa, and we came into Spain. And we're the Castiles that come out of Spain. Our identity has been kind of hidden. If you see them talking about us in research, they'll call us swarthy. They never call us black. That name swarthy, if you look all through the Castile history, you'll see that name. Because in and out, we were trying to be made white. They have a picture, my kids, of one of my Castile coming from Spain. And he was a black man, painted. They had a picture painted of him. A couple of 100 years later, that picture was white. And we didn't really notice it, but a researcher happened to be watching my granddaughter search our history. And he contacted me and said, "You don't know who you are. Your history has been hidden." And he began to go through it, and it's all there. I mean, we don't have to put it together or anything. It's the Castile history is there clearly. So that's kind of who I am, and my grandma breeded me to sit right here today. That's why I got this little thing on. That's a tribute to my grandmother right there.
Yeah.
You know, right there, that's grandmother's stuff. It's what you call it, a Dogon symbol of the grandmother meditating. And my grandmother's always very, very close to me. In fact, she's right there right now. Excuse me, y'all.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, I think that this is the time. It seems like right now, this is the time for that hidden history to become uncovered. It seems like that's just a thread that's running through so much that we're doing. The hidden history is being uncovered, and it's making those connections for all of us. This is the time for that.
We do not have to research our history. We just got to read it.
It's there.
It's
It's
all
there.
there.
It's there for
We
us.
don't have to claim it. It's all there. So it's a new day. Things are going to be a lot different. But, you know, that the ones who are going to change it, they're under 6. They're 6-year-old kids. That's who will change this. We ain't going to change nothing. We might just blow it all up. Excuse me for acting like this, y'all. I just feel that way. And when I feel it, I say it.
It's not easy being in this world right now. Just what we're seeing. Not at all. Holding on to hope.
That's
as hard as we can.
That's our best we can.
Yeah, and so you named the book Ebony Creole Whispers. Oh, Whispers.
Why? Because I always heard those voices, and I never knew where thoughts came from till I began to recognize the voice of my grandmother in my mind and in my spirit. for it, and I did all this, I wrote all this stuff, I didn't write all that stuff. My grandma and them pushed that out of me. That's what they wanted said, and they greeted me to say it. As you were talking about the Creoles that published, they mostly published in France, but amongst the everyday people, it was the oral tradition, like I do, like you just seen me do, the oral tradition. And we continue to develop it. That's what you're seeing in the thing they call rap, which is, as again, I keep saying, it's a fine art, no different than jazz. And they evolve together. And mixing Creole, the language, the French, etc. All together, you got this beautiful language called rap. And like I said, the youngsters today, 16 and 17 years old, I can't even understand them. That language is developed, it's constantly evolving, constantly evolving. Police departments all across the country are trying to keep up with it. They have whole departments are trying to keep up with the ever-evolving language of rap. But you must separate it from hip-hop. They're two different things. Pop art and fine art.
You're talking about oral tradition and expressing yourself orally. And I have a slide, and it has here the markings that you have within this poem. Can you explain what those are?
I'm not no English or nothing. I didn't even finish grammar school. But I was trying to figure out some symbols that I could use to tell you how to say my poem orally. I don't need a period. I just need to know, take a breath. You understand? Because I do my poetry from memory. I blow it like you blow a horn. But I came up around guys like that. Don Cherry, Billy Higgins, Arnett Coleman, Horace Tapscott. Those are all Watts boys. And I happened to come up amongst them, thank God. And I was able to see what an artist really is. And these guys were really, Don Cherry is one of the fathers of world music. Arnett Coleman is the most celebrated jazz musician there is. So I got an opportunity to be raised around those guys. And they taught me something that I my lessons that I learned from them. I remember I told Don Cherry one day, I said, I'm looking for my style, man. I said, I gotta get my style together. I'm really working on it. And him and Arnett turned and looked at me and said, you working on your style? I said, yeah, man, I'm working on my style. They say, well, we really feel sorry for you, bro. I said, you feel sorry for me working on my style? They say, yeah, man, style is the death of creativity. And you're gonna need creativity if you're an artist for the rest of your life. He said, style is the death of creativity. Great lesson I learned. I said, thank you for telling me that. And I continued on being me and writing the way I felt. Never wanting to be the satellite of another's realities. I have my own. And that's just kind of where I'm at as a poet.
That was from Ebony Creole Whisper, huh?
That's right.
And so, what about?
With those marks, I said, I'm trying to figure out, and I wish I had a professor or English somebody would come with me and help me develop, for oral tradition, symbols for oral tradition, when to take a breath. I don't need a period, I need a breath. So how can I identify that with marks? Like the period, the exclamation mark, the question mark, etc. I'm searching for those symbols. I ain't quite got it yet, but I'm trying.
Sounds good. And so, I was reading here on page 16. It's a short statement that you made on page 16 here. And then lead to another question. Prophets come to tear down lies and build up truth. So what about poets as prophets?
Well, we never called ourselves prophets, you guys. How we got the name prophets is in our early years. We went to a place called Inner City Cultural Center. It's the first place we ever won a contest. And it was all kinds of different artists and different people there. So we got ready to go on stage, and we'd been calling ourselves Watts Fire or something like that. And they said, "What's you guys' name?" And we said, Watts Poets Fire, something like that. And one lady hollered from the audience, "No, you're not poets, you're prophets." And that was our name. That's how we got the name Watts Prophets. We didn't have the nerve enough to sit around and talk about we were prophets. But people seem to think that sometimes, because our work has been very prophetic. We have never had a major record, and we've never had a big campaign. We've never had an advertisement nowhere, but our work is all over earth. They're rapping all over the whole earth. And everything they tried to do to stop it continues to make it grow.
So, would you have any bit of advice? We were talking about 6-year-olds. If it's in their hands.
It's in
It's in
there.
their
You
hands.
guys, stop and start watching the ones under 6. Take a look at them. They're very different than us. They're very bright. I have a whole bunch of them. I must have around 50 grandkids or more. Probably not. Last count was 51. So I got a lot of 6-year-olds to look at. And beyond that, going under that age, they are something different. Start looking at them and please protect them. Because there's something different. Start looking at them, listening to them. They're very, very bright. That little age group right there. There's something new coming through. Now is new. Now is new. Right this moment, you can do something old or you can do something new. But now is new. The past is history, the future a mystery. Now is new. Yesterday went away. What you gonna do today? What you gonna do with now? What you gonna do right now? Because now is new. Now is new. In a stagnated mind, it don't stagnate time. Time just moves on to now is new. Now is new. Right this moment, y'all. Do something new.
I think that was a wonderful place to wrap up. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you guys for listening and taking time to listen to us.
Thanks for pouring into us.
And this young man right here was around during my early years as a poet. He was very close to Richard Dito, the other Creole poet that was in the group. And he was there in his early years. I might have been around when he picked up his camera. Was it?
Yeah, it was. It became like a surrogate father to me in LA when I went to LA at 16 years old. And I was fortunate to get involved with the Watts Prophets. And at that time, LA had it going on. You had the Inner City Culture Theater, you had the Watts Writers Workshop and Columbia Institute. And all of it had an effect on my career as a photographer because I would be following the Watts Prophets, shooting events, and became family.
In fact, you were the one who called us from the radio station when that guy was down there telling everybody that he was an informant. You were at the station, you and your crew, and you happened to hear it, and you called and said, "Man, this guy down here talking about he burned y'all workshop down." You remember that?
Well, I remember Ed Riggs quite well at that time because he was very active around the artists, you know, because he played his way into the theater and gained confidence. But when he served as the FBI informant, he quite clearly said that the government wasn't interested in all them activists. He was interested in the writers, the poets, the thoughts of the people that was doing the creativity. And that's where Amde made a free workshop at the Watch Writers Workshop. And there was a lot of brothers just coming, you know, hanging out. I mean, Amde, like from the Institute, where they had theater going on. I mean, it was a lot when I think about it. And for me, coming from New Orleans, from the Lower Ninth Ward, and getting involved in the arts, it had a great influence on my career now as a photographer. So I'm honored. But Amde was real active, you know, with the community. And what happened was, at that time, the government had to decentralize the black movement. That's why they came in with the rap and all this social hoodlum. Like now you see all these young studio gangsters, but half of these kids, like I document prison in Louisiana, and half of these so-called gangsters, when they get to the prison, they're not gangsters. So it's something that they have created. So to eliminate the guys like the Watch Prophets in the community, you know. We don't have those culture positives, hot spots no more, guys to come. And I mean, people just come to the workshop with writers. I mean, it was you, Richard, and Otis, and Pearlie McGee.
Pearl McGee, yes.
Was came, and I think she had been.
Julia Lewis, she lives here in New Orleans.
Julia Lewis. Well, bought me a camera, Julia Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, so I have a lot to owe to the Watch Prophets as far as my development as an artist.
Oh, that's awesome. That's always connections.
Yes.
From here to California, and back again.
And back again.
And back again. And so I like the way that you always sign off. You sign your books, and if we send a little message, you always sign off, one love.
That's right.
One love.
Love, love, love. That's
Love,
my
love.
thing. Love, love, love. Let me leave you with a poem. One of my favorite poems. And I haven't memorized this book yet. I don't believe in reading poetry. I believe in the oral tradition. That's where it started. The Europeans started writing it. We put it on rocks and stuff, but not like that. They started coming up with books and this and that. But this book is about Google told me a lie. I don't know why, but Google told me a lie. Whoever or whatever Google be lying sometimes with biased racist opinions. Google this, Google that. How you know that's a fact? Google don't respect truth or lie. What you think and why, that's how Google gets by. Most think Google is a scientific expert on everything. Google can make a fool think they're cool. Downloading Google opinions, creating Google minds on Google time. Googling this and Googling this. Google motives and Google facts. Google will tell you this and tell me that. About a fact, what's with that? Google be lying sometimes. And people be going go gaga over Google, go gaga over Google. But Google be lying sometimes. To download it, Google minds. What's with that? Google not the most high. Sometimes Google tell a lie. Can you Google why? Google be lying sometimes. Can you Google why?
Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you so much for coming
Thanks
back.
for inviting me, Tiffany. She's so beautiful and came to Los Angeles and told me so much about, which made me so happy, the history she started telling me, because I saw our history dwindling away. And I didn't know what to do about it. My name is Hamilton because my mother was a good Catholic. And she had a couple of babies out of wedlock before she was married. So when she did get married, the name was Hamilton to the man she married. And she gave us all that name. But during my birth, she wrote on there, Anthony Smith, and which was my father's name, not Hamilton, my stepfather. And they say my grandmother snatched it out of her hand and put Castile. You can see the two handwritings. They're different. My mother didn't pay any attention, but my grandmother knew who she was. And she put Castile. You can see the two different handwritings.
Wow. So I'm happy I brought you some hope for sure.
Oh, you brought me hope, baby. You really did. When you told me they were saving the language, you guys were trying to learn it, you were taking French. That made me feel so good because I remember my grandma and them, my papa spoke fluent French. Grandma and them spoke Creole, but Papa spoke both of them. And it's just interesting, Like I said, we came in 1803 and we were the Castiles and what are the other name? Mouton, not Mouton, the other name I said. Landry's. The Landry's. Those were our families at first. And like I said, we're from Breaux-Bridge, Crowley, Lafayette, New Orleans, all around there. I sure want to go back and see a lot of things. I hear there's a whole Castile, little like plantation there. They don't have any black people in there though. I don't know how they couldn't.
Yeah, it's like my family.
Yeah. But all along in our history, they kept trying to change us to white. They called it swarty. They wouldn't call us black or African. They call us swarty. You can find it all through our history, swarty. They kept, we kept going in and out, and I'm quite sure my grandmother was a Myers. That's Jews from England, that area. That's where grandma was from. We both have coats of arms, the Castiles and the Myers. But we never knew that till now.
Thank you. Thank you once again.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for coming out.
Any questions?
Where are you living?
Where I live? Los Angeles.
Okay.
I've been staying up in the Redwoods though for the last 20 years. That's where my friends are. I live in the Avenue of the Giants, where the biggest trees in the world are. That's what's my friends. For the last 20 years, I moved amongst those trees.
Our keepers.
That community, before the highway went through, that Louisiana Creole community, did you hear Creole? Did you hear French? Did people speaking French? What would someone have known they were in a different place if they had walked into that neighborhood?
Into where my grandmother then was, because Creoles always stick together, yes. And they talked the language all the time. My grandma and papa didn't speak good English. Not at all. My Aunt Nani was one of the oldest people here for a long time, I believe. Aunt Nani.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yes, it is. All of us have an interesting past. When people get to looking at it as writers, get to looking at yourself, everybody has a story to tell.
Yes, they do. Any other questions?
I'm glad y'all got all you needed.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Appreciate you.